Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Authentic Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Coach Cece Ojany-Bekhor. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the Unusual Conversations series. I am here with two very special guests once again, my good friends and fellow coaches, Coach Jane Katuga and Coach Carolyne Gaithuma. How are you, ladies?
We are great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Good. It's I'm smiling really hard because I'm just really excited about the second conversation on parenting. It's such a deep topic. It's such a big topic. But before I do that, let me just share with you some of the awesome feedback we got about the previous episode we did on purpose. Anne from Australia said, it was so lovely listening to your stories. You three have such rich stories. A former client of mine, I'll call her TD, said, I so needed this. Stephanie says, what a fantastic conversation. Naomi says, Cece, I have so many questions. And I told her, who knows, we might have a live conversation once where we get people to ask questions. A friend of my husband's, actually, I'll call him B, says, wow, great job. Learned so much from the episode. And David also said, wow, Cece, lots to unpack here. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. We are now in the second episode of the Unusual Conversation series. If you're listening to this from SoundCloud, this is episode 67. We're talking about parenting. Now, before we get into it, again, I just want to remind all of you who are listening, all of you who will listen in the future, Jane, Carolyne, and I are not preaching. We do not claim to know all the answers. We work as coaches. We want you to take what you want and discard what doesn't work for you. Okay, because you are smart enough to know when something resonates or not. Alrighty, Jane, Carolyne, let the people know what you do, how you do it, and who you do it with. Carolyne, maybe you go first.
Okay, cool. My name is Carolyne Gaithuma. I am a transformation coach. I see myself as a midwife of new identities. I believe that between you and your challenge or you and your goal is a new you, and I help you uncover and unveil that new you through processes that are conversational. So I do I use coaching techniques, and I also do some energy work to help you create new thought patterns and new emotional patterns so that you can take new actions to get new results for your life. And I do that with anybody who feels that they are done with the status quo. So whoever that is and whatever has brought you to that point, that's who I work with. Yeah.
Nice. So if things are not working and you're just tired and your old identity is no longer working for you, I know you're big on new identities. Who and what is the new you that needs to come through so that you can move forward? That's really awesome. What about yourself, Jane? What do you do? How do you do it? And who do you do it with?
Okay, thank you so much, Cece. And my name is Jane Katuga. I'm a life and wellness coach. So what do? I equip the people, my coachees, with knowledge and opportunities. I see myself as a mirror that helps people get to see themselves. You know, we live in a world where we are always asking ourselves, why is this happening? Why is it happening to me? What's going on? Why are things not working? And I keep saying, if you don't like what is going on in your life, ask yourself what thoughts you've been entertaining about what is going on. And really, when I say I'm a mirror, it's really getting you to see that a lot of what is happening in your life started off with a story. Something happened and you built a story around it. And I get you to see how that story has been controlling your life, how that story makes you make decisions, how it takes power from your life. So the people I work with, and that now spreads from, whoever, actually from people from colleges, people in organizations. I work with corporates. people who come to me are looking at setting themselves free from all the stories they've been telling themselves. So what I offer is a mirror for them to look at themselves and look at what they've been saying to themselves. And now that holds them back. So, and then they're able now to create and see different things for themselves, adopt new behavior patterns. And as Carolyne says, take on new identities. So that helps you now move to your life in the way that you so desire.
Nice. I love it, Jane. I love it. And we three have coached one another. So it was very clear that it was these two ladies I wanted to have the unusual conversations with, because Carolyne and Jane are so, so real. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ojany-Bekhor. I work as an executive leadership and wellness coach. Simply put, I help leaders like yourselves. Those of you who are listening, I help you solve your personal and professional challenges. And I also help your teams enhance their team dynamics and the culture in the organization. So thank you once again to all our listeners and to my two guests. Let's get right into it. Parenting. Now, I would like to say this. There are two lenses that I would love for us to listen to this conversation with. The first lens is remembering that you are someone's child. Yeah, so we all have parents. You are someone's child. And for those of you who have children, you are someone's parent. So let's listen to this conversation from those two lenses. Now, these are unusual conversations, ladies. So let me ask a hard-hitting question. What has shocked you the most about being a parent? Jane, do you want to go first? What has shocked you the most about being a parent? I know you have two older daughters, two beautiful daughters. I've met them. What has shocked you the most about being a parent, Jane?
I would say is how unprepared I was to be a parent.
Yeah. How old are your daughters now? And you don't have to say the names of your children if you're not comfortable to. That's totally cool. But how old are your daughters now?
Okay, let me say they're adults.
Yes.
So that I don't get bashed after this.
Yeah, because they will listen. They will listen.
They will listen, yes.
You were not prepared.
How unprepared I was.
Yeah.
Especially with my first one, I woke up and I was one day and, hey, I discovered something is happening and I was pregnant, and there I was.
Yeah.
So then comes the baby and I'm thinking, wow. Of course, there was all those things during pregnancy that I was totally unprepared for.
Yeah.
And then comes the baby, I have no clue. So at some point I was even wondering who's supposed to teach who what here, because hey, it just felt, Sissy, it has felt like a lifelong test.
Yeah.
That has no set format for marking.
Yeah.
For examining. That has a thin line between who is the teacher and who is the student.
Yep.
That has tested every emotion I have in my body.
Yeah.
That also has given me joy beyond measure.
Yeah.
But as well, it has given me pain in equal measure.
Yeah. Now, see, that's the part people don't want to talk about, because having children is, of course, a blessing that goes without saying.
Yes.
But there's a lot of pain. It is such a complex
journey. Sissy, it tests your competency. You thought you knew.
Yeah.
You've read a couple of books and you think this is how it will show up. Oh, your children come in and they tell you, no, that book will not apply to me. You second guess yourself at every step.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it has you making decisions and then crying after making those decisions. So that I do the right thing.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of joy and pride,
Yes.
Most importantly, what I can tell you, the biggest lesson is understanding, what I don't know. And this is, I'm learning every moment. So it has forced me to live life in the moment and forced me to really listen to what they're saying, even now as adults.
Yeah.
So because, how I thought it would be my child of fantasy, that shocked me. That child of fantasy, getting new lessons every day. I'm not that child of fantasy, I'm that real child.
We definitely have to delve deeper into that. The fantasy child you have in your head.
Ooh, yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
so much. Sorry,
yeah,
Jake, go
thank you.
ahead.
No, I was just brought into some realization.
Mhm.
This one, you don't have it covered.
Yeah, no one
You
does.
do not have it covered.
Yeah, no one does.
Yes,
No one
no
does.
one does. Yes.
What about you, Caroline? What has shocked you the most about being a parent? You have sons and a daughter as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is, I think, the most difficult role I've ever had to play in my life.
Mm.
And the most shocking thing that I, encountered being a parent is how much pain is involved and nobody talks about it. Like, I was like, is it just me? Because I, everyone is so, glamorizing parenthood, and
Yes, it's been
yet I was feeling so
romanticized.
much pain and anger. And, anger because of that realization that I'm not in control. When you lose control, you feel angry.
Yeah,
So I had so much anger and so much pain involved because of the whole process of being a parent as a woman, you
yeah,
know, as a wife, and then, for my case, I'm separated, so as a co-parent,
yeah.
but nobody is talking about it. So for me, that was shocking. I was like, Ebu, am I alone in this?
Yes,
And
yes.
Yeah.
and I've had countless experiences
Mhm.
that have made me think I don't think I should have been a parent. Like,
Mhm.
think
Yeah, and thank
about
you for keeping it so real.
Yeah.
And thank you for keeping it
exactly.
so real because it has been romanticized,
Yeah.
especially motherhood.
Oh yeah.
Nothing has been
Ooh.
romantic. I look into my child's eyes and I just see worlds. Yes, that's true, but you also crap your pants sometimes.
And Sissy, nobody says,
And
"Oh, and
pull
I'm just
your
about
hair
to
up.
leave. I'm just about to leave for my meeting," and you throw up on me. I mean, come on, stop romanticizing this. Hey,
That
hello.
reminds me. That reminds me of a time when my husband and I were traveling to Tanzania to hang out with some friends. So we drove there, and we had not even traveled for more than 20 minutes when our daughter vomited in the back of the car seat, and
Yes.
we're just like, oh wow, it's not just the two of us anymore. We have to move a bit slowly. But yeah, lots of stories to share, and we will be sharing them in this episode.
Yeah.
For me, the thing that has shocked me the most about being a parent is the toll it took on my body physically.
Mm-hmm.
The sleep deprivation when my daughter was less than a year old, that really smacked me around, and I hadn't expected it. And my daughter is a good sleeper, so I always ask myself, wow, now what about those parents who the kid is waking up every 90 minutes in the middle of the night?
Mm-hmm.
So that took a toll on my body, and it's taken a while for my body to recover. That's number one. And then the second thing was when it dawned on me that, oh my God, I don't own this child. You know how you go and buy a handbag and you own the
Yes.
handbag, but you see that
Yes.
Yeah.
the handbag can be taken from you. This is Nairobi.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I own this laptop. It's mine. If you try to steal it, I could go to the cops. But I don't own my child. And so it becomes a very interesting question because you're investing in this child. You're giving so much time, energy, love, attention. And I enjoy it. I love being a mom. But it took a minute for me to ingest the reality that I don't own this kid. This kid has her own personality. She will have her own preferences, likes, dislikes, and as a mom, as a parent, I just have to get with that, especially the older they get, you just have to get with that. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's
so
true.
a friend of mine, Caroline, you know her, she does a body therapy, a friend of ours called Minal. Minal
Mm-hmm.
told me that she when she prays, she's a custodian of her children and she believes they belong to God. So when she
Mhm.
plays, she just asks for guidance because, you know, these are God's children, and she's just their guide. I thought that was so profound.
Oh, that's
It
great.
is.
And I took that
Yeah.
on as well. Um, Here's the next question. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now we're looking at ourselves as someone's child. When did you first realize, oh my God, my parents are human? They are just human. And most of us have very high expectations of our parents. And then we get,
Yeah.
quote unquote, disappointed. And then
Yeah.
some of us, not all of us, some of us then get to a place where we realize, holy moly, my parents are just human. I should cut them some slack. I don't know if you remember, Carolyne, when was that moment for you, or has something like that even happened for you? That realization.
Yeah, and it happened very recently, I must say,
Yeah,
because it was, first of all, it wasn't in my awareness that I'm still idealizing my parents.
yeah,
And, it just happened when I was thinking of what should be happening, how they should be seeing me, how they should be understanding me. And then the realization happened when my son became an adult. And
yeah,
I realized, oh my goodness, if I thought I had any leash on him, it's gone.
yeah,
Because now he's an adult, he's out there, he's making his own decisions. I don't see him as often. And I was like, wait a minute. Is this what my parents experience? Is it what they are struggling with? That I'm out here making my own decisions and they can't do anything about it? And
mm-hmm.
that's why they are behaving the way they are behaving. So it's like suddenly I saw things from their perspective. And
Yeah,
it started to dawn on me that they are human, like they are people like me dealing with stuff. And I began to wonder what their life has been. When you idealize your parents, you don't even think that they have a life
yes,
outside of your
parenting.
dynamic, your relationship.
Yeah,
That's so true.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like,
You
my
think your mom
parents,
is just, you think your
they
mom is just a
they
mom.
have
You think your dad is just a
Yeah.
dad. So we have a very
exactly
one-dimensional perspective of them.
exactly. I was like, these are people and they have relationships, they have
Yeah.
friendships, they have
Heartbreak.
struggles, they have goals. I
Yeah.
was like, I know none of that. I
Yeah.
don't know anything about my mom's failed friendships or
Yeah.
disappointment or, her
Her
own
pain.
dreams and vision.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing. And I was like, oh my gosh, how
Yeah.
much have I lost of,
Yeah.
I've just been doing this one dimensionally. So for me, it was very recent to answer your question. And
Yeah.
I have been now working towards seeing them as that and relating with them, because that's the next step, relating with them like they're just humans like me going through this life's journey
Yeah.
like me.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Wow. Yes,
Mhm.
that one dimensional view of our parents really,
Yeah.
it strips away a lot of color, it strips away a lot of depth. And
Mm,
it's one of those funny things because when you're a kid, you don't have
mhm.
this understanding. I don't know,
Yeah.
somebody needs to start a parenting school or something where parents and kids behave.
Exactly.
We should start
Exactly.
one.
I had somewhere,
You know
seriously,
what?
I had
Uh-huh.
somewhere
Yes.
that telephone operators are more trained in their job than parents are.
I love that.
It's true. It's true.
Oh,
Do this if this
wow.
happens, do this if that happens. But on a
Yeah.
very serious note, these are things that we were taught in
Mm.
traditional societies. And today, even in a country like Kenya, even in Africa, where we're still very community oriented, we're still doing a lot of stuff by ourselves, a lot of figuring out by ourselves. I'm actually
Yeah.
working on my memoirs at the moment. And for me, the reason why I wanted to embark on this project is because I wanted my daughter to know me and to know of my life even before she was born. I want her to see me as a whole person. Who knows? Maybe she'll read the memoirs and go, geez, Mom, crazy much? But anyway, when did I first realize my parents are just human? For me, there's two aspects. There's two aspects to my answer. Let me put it this way. I realized my parents were flawed, like all of us are. We're all flawed, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. I realized my parents were flawed from a very young age. Just observing some of the mistakes they made, but I was in judgment when I was younger. I was in judgment of that. And when I got my first coach, so in my late 20s, I would say, is when I started the process of understanding them more, forgiving them for anything they did or didn't do. But then it was in my 30s when it dawned on me that actually there's nothing to forgive. There's nothing to forgive because people are just going through what they're going through while they are trying to parent. And it's not easy. It's not easy. This parenting journey is not easy because one of the reasons for, like, I believe the key reason why monks and nuns don't become parents is because of how complex and challenging the whole endeavor is. I remember even someone like Oprah Winfrey, many years ago, I was watching her show and she said she thought about it. She thought about becoming a mom, but she realized that she wasn't going to be able to do the Oprah Winfrey show and everything else that came with, and be a mom and do them both well. And I have a lot of respect for people who can assess themselves and decide, you know what, I don't think I want to have kids. I think that takes an incredible amount of maturity. Just that understanding.
Yes.
That, listen, it's not a puppy. You can't return it to the RSPCA or the KSPCA.
You don't get to do that with parenting.
You don't get to do
You don't get to return to sender,
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for people who choose not to do that. Now, I know some listeners will be a little bit triggered because I did say I realized there was nothing to forgive. We are not these hippy-dippy positive thinkers. We are three women who like to keep it real. There are parents who have done some pretty hardcore and unpleasant things to their kids. We're fully aware of that. But let's delve deeper into this thing of there's nothing to forgive. First of all, do you believe that, Jane? What's your take on that?
First of all, Sissy, let me just say this. I grew up faulting my parents for not offering me what I thought I should have, parenting me in the way I thought I should have been parented.
Mm-hmm.
I felt suppressed. I felt like my feelings were being suppressed. I felt like these people don't listen. Do they even notice I'm here?
Yeah.
And why do you think because you've made mandazi, everybody wants to eat mandazi? Today, I don't feel like, but I had no opportunity to say I don't feel like. If you don't eat, you might miss your next meal. I mean, the other thing was also, hey, I don't need your thoughts. I say it, you do it. But as I started my work now, as I started my personal development work now, I was being coached. And something was just thrown in my face, and I was told, parenting is not a role. It's a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
By then I had children, and I was asked questions. Has it been all well with your children? Have you been that person you thought your parents should have been for you? Yeah. And as I started looking at myself, I was like, no. So my coach asked me, why? And there I was defending myself. I can only offer what I have. And I said, do you think your mother could also have been going through the same thing? She offered, or your father, they only offered what they had. Yeah. And no parent wakes up thinking, I'm going to mess up my child. Yeah. They may do it by way of whatever, just living life and doing what they know best. And then I realized, wait a minute. Much as one day I thought I would actually hold them to task and ask them to forgive, they asked me for their forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, with the knowledge my father had, with the knowledge my mother had, they gave it their best.
Yeah.
And honestly, none of them woke up to break me.
Yeah.
They may have said something that led me there, but no one woke up to do that.
Yeah.
Remember, we only give what we have, what we've been exposed to, what is within our, our knowledge, our realm. So when I start looking at that time, I have 2 children, and I'm thinking I'm struggling with this whole parenting.
Yeah.
My mother had 6, and as we were staircase, one year after the other, how was she managing? My father was always out of town, traveling. How did she even manage? You know, I had so much compassion for her.
Yeah.
That now expecting her to come and seek, that I needed to forgive her. I just realized, my God, do you know, I have no idea what this lady has gone through.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like you said, Caroline, what demons, other demons she's carrying. And she has 6 children every day to wake up to. She's got a job that doesn't pay her well, and half of the time she's just pulling everything to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And here I am thinking, and in fact, my question was, who gives you the right to start thinking you can judge your parents? Of course, I thought that was very harsh coming from my coach. But let me tell you, eventually I was so grateful. I was like, what? Parents, you know what? I need to just go back to my mother and say, you know what? Kudos.
Yeah.
If I was in your shoes, I don't even know how I would have managed this. So the issue of, my mother.
I have 1 kid and I'm tearing my hair out. I'm thinking, and I'm the same as you. My mom and dad had 6 kids. My dad had 8 kids, two from a previous marriage. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, you have to be some kind of saint to not be triggered by everything that's going on in your life, in the world. And then there are these 6 kids, or 7 or 8 or 3, however.
Each with their own opinions, Sissy.
Each with their own opinions, their own personalities.
Their
own
testing you at every moment. So I wonder she didn't kill us, but you know what? I look at her now she's now long gone, but I now think of her with a lot of compassion.
Yeah.
And thinking, you know what, whatever it is, she brought her best foot forward. She always did what she knew best. Yeah. And always her intention was to offer us something different from what she had, because she felt she had struggled so much. So whatever it is she was doing for us is to make our lives easier. Did I understand that? No. Yeah, I just thought she doesn't listen to me. She doesn't care. She's like a police, we used to call her the headmistress, sometimes police station, all those things. But now when I look back and I'm like, wow, much respect for her.
Yeah.
And a lot of compassion.
A lot of compassion.
Yes.
Wow. What about you, Carolyne? Is that even something, we forgive our parents and then we get to a point where we realize, hang on, there's nothing to forgive. That will trigger a lot of, maybe not a lot, maybe some listeners. What are your thoughts on it, Carolyne?
It's a journey. It's like if you're going from here to Mombasa, you're going to pass through, whatever. You're going to pass through Emali, you're going to pass through Voi. Every place has a different landscape, and you cannot avoid passing through those places. And you cannot invalidate those places just because they are not your destination.
Yes.
They are valid. So you come from a place of because awareness is built, it's a journey also. So you come from a place of not even being aware that your parents did anything wrong. Because remember, we start from idealizing our parents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we come to a place of, oh my God, the struggles I'm going through as an adult is because of how I was parented. You get angry.
Yes.
And then suddenly you begin to see what kind of childhood you should have gotten, and you become angry and you start blaming them and you start seeing all the wrong that was done to you.
Yeah.
And that's a place also. And it's valid because all that pain builds the awareness.
Yes.
And then suddenly you realize, oh my goodness, my parents were they were not perfect. They were human beings.
Yeah.
And what was causing them to do what they did to me or didn't do to me was just because they were at that level of awareness. They were dealing with their own traumas. They were dealing with their own inadequacies, just human beings,
Yeah.
just doing the journey of life.
Yeah.
And then you start now relating it to your own journey, and you begin seeing it like Jane is saying. You actually begin to see that that was their best.
Yeah.
And they were always coming from a place of, sometimes they were not even thinking about us. They were just fighting their own demons, and we were just collateral damage.
Absolutely.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's the other thing. That's the other
Yeah,
thing.
it's so true, Caroline.
You have a life. Your parents have a life outside of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just think about it, guys. You're a parent.
Yes.
You've come out of there fighting the war in this capitalistic society. You come home, you're tired, you're angry, your child is playing loudly. You tell them, shut up and go to your room. You at that point, you're not even thinking about your child and the impact that has on their life.
Yeah.
But then it does have an impact.
Yeah.
But then you didn't mean it. So really, it's just life happening. Like nobody meant anything.
Yes.
But then also we can't invalidate the impact.
Yes.
You get what I mean?
That's
So we can't invalidate the impact, but we also can't, everybody's story is valid. Yeah. So when you come to this awareness, you own your part of your story, and you allow them to own their part of their story.
Yes.
So this is what happens when you get to that place of there's nothing to forgive. You learn to separate what is your story and what's their story.
Yeah.
Because whatever happened, and you can't change what happened.
Yeah.
What you can do, like Coach Jane does with her clients, is you change the story that you've been telling yourself about that past that you can never change.
Yes.
Because when you change the story, you change the emotional signature of that memory.
Yes.
That's so true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That class needs to begin.
We'll be the ones to start it.
That school needs to begin.
I started playing this joke with my mom many years ago, when it fully dawned on me that, oh my God, my mom is just human. I started calling her by her first name.
Yeah.
I started calling her Agnes, because it helped me remember this.
Yeah.
Agnes existed before Cece. She had a whole life, etc., etc. So I'd go visit her at Loresho, and I'd be very cheeky, and I'd be like, hi, Agnes, and this Agnes, that. And she just laughed, and she used to say, you're so primitive. And we'd have a good laugh. But I never did tell her, hey, Mom, by the way, you know why I play around and call you Agnes is because it has dawned on me that you're a human like any other human. I remember when my dad passed away, it's such a surreal experience losing a parent. And I was rummaging around in our library, because there's a library in the house I grew up in. My dad was an avid reader. We're all readers. And I came across a little white book that had a kind of like a little key or something. The key wasn't there. It was a very old book. And I was like, I've never seen this book before. And I opened it, and I'm reading, and I'm like, hang on, what is this? And I realized it was my mom's diary from when she was probably in like her 20s. And I shut the book. I was like, wow. Oh my God. I stopped reading it. And my mom had visitors at the time, but I stopped reading it. I kept it. And then when the visitors had left, I showed it to her, and I said, Mom, I found your diary. And then I quickly I took it away from her so she couldn't take it. And I said, can I read it? Mom, can I read it? And she laughed. She's like, yeah, read it. So off I go. I know Caroline, hey, me, my diary. I don't know if my daughter will read mine, but anyway.
What?
So off I go to my room, and I'm like, Bass, I'm going to get the tea. But there was one particular entry which just solidified this idea of, oh my God, Mom is just human, Dad is just human. My mom had an entry in her diary where she had said, I have just discovered MAC Cosmetics, ! What? I burst out laughing. And I just shook my head, because I was like, yeah, don't we all have that more as women? Many of us
Yes,
have
that moment.
where we're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is, oh my God, this foundation is amazing. Like, you know, and just imagining my mom in that state just really, it was a very humbling experience. Because age is another thing, right? My mom had me when she was 42. This is a full-blown adult woman. I didn't know my mom in her 30s, in her 20s. My siblings knew my mom when she was that age. And it's so funny because we all have a different take on who our mom and our dad was or is. And that's the other thing I'd love for the listeners to be aware of. If you and your siblings are butting heads about mom this, dad that, you were parented by different people.
Completely.
A 29-year-old,
yeah,
a 29-year-old is not the same as a 42-year-old. So my sister and I, for example, my firstborn sister and I, we've got different experiences of our mom. So it's just really deep when you remember that. So let's shift and look at it from the other lens. We too are parents. Jane, what's your take on some of the mistakes, quote unquote, mistakes you've made? And what's your take on coming clean with your kids and saying, yeah, I messed up? Should we even be doing that? Or is that too new age?
I think mine was also really forced on me because my daughters, we have open conversations.
Yeah.
And my daughters will tell me, you know, you failed us here. I mean, one of my daughters
you're being told.
I'm being told. You know what? You couldn't defend yourself in that marriage. So we thought you didn't even know how to defend us. So that's how we learned to defend ourselves. Wow. And I was like, whoa. I thought I was masking these things. I thought I didn't want them to see some of these things. Yeah. Oh, they were glaring at them. So I have made plenty of mistakes, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've been, I'm the parent number one. No. The only thing I remember saying to them, you know what, guys, you can fault me for many things. However, you'll not fault me for loving you and wanting you to operate at your best. Yeah. Mistakes I have made. So, Sissy, even to date, I'm still told, yeah, you goofed. And I'm like, I own it.
I own it.
I own it completely. I did.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten to a place where they even say, we're not here to fault you.
Yeah.
We're just here to alert you that these are some of the things we felt.
Yeah, wow.
And instead of now starting to make excuses, just, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm coming through clean. I didn't know. At the point when I did it, and that's why I am so aware there's no parent who wakes up to break their child. At the point I did it,
it makes sense to you.
Yes. And then when you say you're putting your child in timeout, think about this. If you spent a little more time and put them in time in so that they are aware of why you're doing what you're doing and bringing them forth, because what it does, a lot of times now I see it because it happened to me, but I didn't realize that what I was being asked to do is suppress what I was feeling.
Yeah.
Go there and think about what you have done. When you get back here, you better have that, remove that, whatever on your face.
That's frown, that scowl.
All things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm asking that child to suppress. That's how I was asked to suppress. Now I realize that. So there's some things, the thing about being in life with my daughters right now is I'm also still learning. Like I said, there's a thin line between them. People that I thought I was teaching, they became my bigger teachers. Yeah. And getting to that space where I'm saying, you know what? Actually, I thought that's a way to do it. It's just like what I was told when my child was very, very young. You cannot feed on demand. It has to be scheduled. Children must be fed on schedule and all. My children didn't subscribe to that. And I remember my younger daughter being told she's obese and had just gone back to work when she was 60 days older, exactly 2 calendar months. And the doctor is telling me, you can't give them formula. You can't. I said, I'm back to work. I leave the house at 6 o'clock. I'm back at 7:30 or 8:30. What am I supposed to do? Go talk to your employer. And I was like, what? Say what again? But I realized at some point, now today it's much easier for you guys having children at this point. You're given close to 6 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Us, we were not. We were given 2 months, and then you even lost you forfeited your annual leave.
Wow.
So, yes. And what I have looked at now, what I've learned to look at now, instead of looking at them as really mistakes, and I know I did make them, what are the lessons to be drawn from that?
Yeah.
What can they learn, my daughters, from that? And what can I also teach someone else so that they don't end up in the same space? Mine, Sissy, I have been told, and I am continuously being told, here you go, here you go.
Here
And
you
you know
go,
what? Now I own it.
You can own it, and you can own it.
Own it.
You know, it's part of the, okay, well, first of all, let me just say this to all our listeners. In the previous episode, when we were talking about purpose, we talked about, you know, you're being done. You're being done. There's something bigger at play here. So, you know, even the word mistake is not accurate, because
yes,
appears to be a mistake can be a revelation and a huge lesson for everyone involved. But there's also a lot of there's a deep level of self-love you need to give yourself as a parent. That's one of the things I'm learning. I'm just like, Cici, you're human, you know, and I would love to remind my daughter of that regularly. Some of the best advice I got when I was pregnant was from a gentleman I know in Melbourne, in Australia, who said, you know, Cici, you're going to mess up. Just clean it up when you do. And that really set me up nicely. You're going to mess up. Just clean up when you do. And then the other advice I got was, I remember saying to someone, I don't want my daughter to see me angry. For some reason, back then I was still making anger wrong. And he said, this guy actually, he happened to be a psychologist. It wasn't a session, we were just chatting. And he said, but Cici, kids need to see the full range of emotions. They need to
learn how to deal with them.
Exactly, learn how to deal with them, but also, it also helps them know that, oh yeah, dad is just human, mom is just human. We spend so much time. And coaches have been guilty of this thing of trying to turn people into superhumans. You know, get it, do it, crush it, all that coaching lingo, you know.
Don't use this wasted emotion. Yes,
you know, trying to turn people into superhumans, and it backfires, because guess what? You're human. That's an amazing thing, but it's also a very humbling thing. And this is why we're having these unusual conversations, because helping ourselves and helping other people hold two seemingly opposite thoughts in their heads at the same time. You're human can be very human. That's very small, but you can.
Let me add something right there. Just one thing that really stands out to me as you were talking, I did with my daughter, my firstborn.
Yeah.
One day I can't remember what she had done, or she had not done. Anyway, I ended up beating her.
Yeah.
I even took a belt and I started beating her. My neighbor came into my house. She just stepped in and she was in, I don't know why we were in the bathroom, but I remember that I was beating her in the bathroom, and my neighbor came, pushed me away, and she looked at me and she says, I cannot believe that this is who you've become. That's all she said to me. And then she grabbed my daughter and she started crying. They cried together, and they were together for about 1.5 hours, and I felt completely left out. After she left, she just told me, I hope you never do this again. So after she left, I realized who I had become. The thing I really hated going, as a child growing up, being beaten by my mother like this. So who I had become was my mother, and the person I had sworn never to be.
Yeah.
I remember that day, Sissy, I went to my daughter's bed. And I got into bed with her, and we both cried. And I promised her I would never, ever hit her again.
Yeah.
Never. And I know even my girl now, my second born, I never hit her at all.
Yeah.
But it was something that really, I had to actually question myself. Who had I become?
Yeah.
Who is this person? So have we made blunders? Yes.
Yeah.
Completely. And in my pursuit of not wanting to look like I was combative, even with their father, the rage built up and went boom. Yes.
There you are in the bathroom. See, that's the
Yes.
thing. That's why suppressing emotions, you never really suppress emotions. They just find somewhere else to
They
go.
will show up
What
before
about
you leave.
you, Carolyne? What about you? Blunders, no blunders? Do we say sorry? Do we own up to them? Or is that all new age, hippy dippy thinking? What are your thoughts?
Wow, my goodness. Let's start with blunders. You know, I've made serious blunders.
Yeah.
Serious blunders that almost cost me my child.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
and these blunders that I made, I didn't even know I was making the blunders. You know, sometimes when you go into parenting thinking and believing that you actually know what you're doing, that's the first blunder.
That's the first.
Because you defend every
Thank
action
you,
you make,
Carolyne.
and everybody supports you because you're the parent, period.
Yes.
You know, and you could be doing the worst thing to your child, because I've seen this even in parenting groups that I'm in, and people are okay with doing, you know, and I sit down and I actually cry, and I'm like, the world is so hostile for children, honestly speaking, because adults group up and agree on some of the worst atrocities on children
Yeah.
just because of this title parent.
Yes.
Actually, just because you're a parent, you know what's good for your child.
Yeah.
If you believe that, if you actually believe that, that's the biggest blunder that you're making.
Number one. Yeah.
That's the biggest blunder that causes all these other blunders.
Yeah.
The other blunder is not being aware of your own self, you know, like what is actually going on within you, because some of us are stepping into parenting with a lot of wounds that we are carrying.
Yes.
And when we parent with those wounds.
Yep.
And we don't even know that this is what is triggering us. You think it's your child's mistake that is causing you to beat them.
Yes.
But it's not. It's something else that it's pointing at.
Yeah.
And I remember one day beating my second born, and I'll never forget. It was the last time I beat him, actually.
Yeah.
But I was so angry, and I remember beating him, but I'll never forget the look on his face.
Yeah.
Like the way he looked at me. He was so scared.
Yeah.
He had so much fear in his eyes.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized that he could see it wasn't the mistake.
Yeah. Oh,
wow, snap.
Yeah. The kid
like
has
there
realized
was something else.
This is something else. Yeah.
This is something else, and he was just getting, you know, I was just using him.
He was a fall guy.
Exactly. And I could see from the look of his eyes that he could see that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, after that, I really, really apologized to him.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what apologizing to your child does. When you really, it's not this apology so that he can eat dinner because he's refused.
Yeah.
It's the apology of you're really sorry.
Yeah.
It actually shows
it
gives them another dynamic to life.
Yes.
That no matter how big a mistake you've done, you should never be ashamed of recognizing it, you know, recognizing that you've made a mistake and actually owning up to that and apologizing. You teach them that, because kids learn from modeling, not from you telling them.
Absolutely.
They learn from how they see you responding to life and to them.
Yes. And that's what they're going to go out and mimic, which is why the stories you've shared are so powerful, because you want to normalize your kids being the kind of adults who tell others, I'm sorry I blundered. I'm sorry I blundered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let me add something before you go on to the next point. Mistakes are not only about what you have done. they're also
Also
about
what you
what you
haven't
have not done.
Yep.
done.
You see, in
Yes.
parenting, and it's very sad that in our society, the people who learn about child psychology are just psychologists, so
Yeah.
that they can help us rectify our mistakes. Yet we are the ones who need that information,
Yeah.
because we are bringing up human beings who are going to be people in this society.
Yeah.
And we don't even know we just know their physical needs. We don't know their psychological needs.
Yes. Yes.
You see? For
Absolutely.
Yeah.
example, kids need a sense of balance. You know, kids need
They
to be
do.
shown how to be responsible. Kids need a sense of routine. Kids need a sense of, all these things that
All these things.
make us responsible and efficient and abundant adults.
Yeah.
They start from that young age.
Yes. Absolutely.
So when you're not consistent, for example, in your household, there's no consistency.
Yeah.
What does this mean for this child? They are always wondering what is next. So they create this emotional pattern of always being anxious,
Yeah.
because they don't know, are we
Mm.
eating? Are we going out? Are we being shouted at? Are we being,
What is happening? Yeah.
Mm.
what is happening in this
What is
home?
happening in
It's
this
like
home?
they learn that emotional pattern and they go out with it, and that's how they learn to organize their life, and it turns out a certain way. So even I know that some of the mistakes I did were mistakes of omission.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mistakes of
Yes.
omission. And Caroline,
Yeah.
what you said, there's so many layers to what you've said. There's this phrase which bothers a lot of people. Every country has the government it deserves. That quote bothers a lot of people because it's very comfortable, first of all, being in an us versus them attitude. But
Yes.
what that phrase truly means, let me break it down for the listeners. What that phrase truly means is you're looking at yourselves. That president, that prime minister, that minister of this, minister of that, they're just us.
Yes.
They grew up in the same society you did. They grew up in a home where there were certain dynamics. So for example, for our listeners who are not Kenyan, and we do have people who listen from outside of Kenya, there's this thing in Kenya about you need to hustle, you need to get yours, you need to get money, any means necessary. And so Nairobi especially has become the kind of city where any old person is trying to get one up over you, and so our families are spewing out certain types of people. Those people influence and inform society, and we get our leaders from this society. So there's no us versus them. It's all just us. It's all just us.
Yeah.
You talked about what kids need. One of the things that a lot of parents are not aware of, my very first coach educated me on this many, many years ago. And it is this, what we call the terrible twos or the terrible threes. See, this is another miscalculation parents make. You think that your kid is just, quote unquote, being difficult.
Yeah.
What's happening at the age of 2, 3 there? Your child, and this is a perfectly natural and healthy aspect of their development. Your child has realized, oh, mom and I are separate. Dad and I are separate. I am my own person. Now, of course, in your 2-year-old's mind, they're not thinking, I am my own person. It is something that dawns on them. Which is why when you say, okay, wear the green shirt, your kid goes, no, I want the red one. And then you make the mistake of fighting about that. And then it becomes this whole story about the terrible twos, the terrible threes, and tantrums and this and that, when in reality, it's just your kid has realized, I am an individual. I am separate from mom. I am separate from dad. I can't say I like the green shirt. You know what I mean?
Counterdependence.
Yes, exactly. Now, on the one hand, we say we want our children to be independent and independent thinkers, but that's the first hole you've dropped into. When they're two, they're expressing a different view over small things. I want the green t-shirt. No, you wear the red one.
I want a cookie now.
You're already cutting them off at the knees. So that child is not suddenly going to become that 30-year-old independent thinker. There were some things that were done in the home that's now making it hard. The imprint.
Yeah, that's so true.
The imprint. And so one of the things I like to think about as a parent, I like to think about the future. And I'm like, what I'm doing right now, how might this influence my daughter in the future?
Okay.
Because it's kind of like how when an adult comes to you for coaching or therapy, sometimes you need to follow the trail back to the childhood. Sometimes it's not necessary, but other times it is about the childhood. You know what I mean? Now, having said all that, God laughs at those who make plans. Your kid might go through things you will never go through. See, that's another reason why we have to ingest this reality that your child is a separate individual.
Yeah.
They have their own preferences, likes, dislikes, but they will also go through things that you have never been through.
And that's you can never save them from.
And you can never save them from. Which is why I like to say to my clients who are parents, I like to say, you want to raise your kids for tomorrow, not for the world you were raised in. You know, you want to raise your kids for tomorrow. So for example, back in the day, you know, parents were concerned about careers in the arts and things like that. But now you have people like Elsa Majimbo making a fortune by being an online comedian. You can't really
imagine.
Be the kind of parent. You can't be the kind of parent saying, no, that's rubbish. You need to become a lawyer. You need to become an engineer, because your kid has a phone and they're going, but wait a minute. Obviously, there are boundaries, right? Obviously, there are boundaries. But this thing of control, it's such a dangerous trap.
Yeah.
And that's what makes parenting so complex. You have influence, yes, but you don't have control
over them. But I don't even think they think control at that point. This is them projecting their own insecurities. And the only way, Caroline, you are going to make anything out of your life is if you become a doctor. Then you can have a secure job. You know, that's the thinking.
Which is a fair point. But you see, Jane, that's a fair point, because you will be guaranteed a job wherever you go if you're a doctor.
Yeah, but is that what I want?
Yes.
Is that who? Yeah.
What didn't even apply? What you want? Because what do you know? I know better what you need. I'm the one who knows what you need. And I think the bubble has been burst because we, parenting in this generation, we are the ones, you know, that truth is so glaring to us. Our children are telling us, you're not the boss of me. You don't know what I want.
Yes.
You see, and that's why, you know, even if you look at the intergenerational relationships, our parents are not understanding how we are parenting. You know, they are like, what's with people? You know, you're spoiling your children. I don't know, you're telling your children sorry. I don't know, you're asking them what they want. What kind of parenting is that? They don't understand that. You know?
They don't. It's a bit too extra.
They're like,
it's a bit too extra for
what
them.
do these children know?
Yeah.
Why aren't you guiding them well? How does your daughter just decide she doesn't want to work in an office? She wants to become a swimming coach. Why? That's not a proper job. That's a hobby. I was told that.
And remember, they still see us as their children. You see, when it comes to the dynamic from the other side, they still have that sense of control, like
Yes.
that sense of I'm still parenting you. You see, it never ends for them. They never think that now you're parenting yourself.
It might never end for us as well. You know, you're still a mom, you're still a parent, whether you're 50 and your kid is 35 or 30 or whatever.
You're still parenting. That job,
you're parenting them.
You're still parenting.
And you're judging how they are parenting. And because they are your child and they don't know what is good for them, they might not know what is good for your grandchildren.
Oh, yes. Oh, tell me about that. I'm reminded all the time. Mom.
Yeah, it's the year 2022, not the year.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's important to, it's a dance. It's a dance. Children definitely need guidelines and boundaries. Otherwise, they can become crazy people, quote unquote crazy people. But the extent you try to control everything, it'll become a constant battle with your kids, which is what you don't want.
And they shall start avoiding you.
They'll start avoiding you. They'll start hanging out with their friends. Anyway, we all know how it can go pear-shaped very, very fast.
Very fast.
Here's another really interesting thing. So I have, my husband and I have one daughter. And it's so fascinating how many people are invested in us having another kid, because that's another story. That's another story. Like,
oh my God.
No, she shouldn't be by herself. And And I keep saying to people, guys, more so than a sibling, what children need is healthy parents. Siblings are awesome. I say siblings are awesome, but again, there are some listeners out there who will be like, well, I'm not really close to my siblings, so I don't know about that. But it's that ongoing romanticizing of parenthood and all of this kind of stuff. And there's still so much judgment.
Yeah.
There's so much judgment if you don't have kids. There's so much judgment if you have just one kid. There's so much judgment of the choices you're making with your kids.
Yeah.
Or the gender of the kids.
The gender.
Or the naming of the kids. It's like, my goodness.
And they put you on a guilt trip, Sissy. They also send you on a guilt trip. When, my daughters, they have a 6.5, almost 7 years gap.
Yeah.
And somebody just said to me, what if your mother had stopped at your sister number one? I was like, what?
Okay,
what if your mother had stopped there? Would you have...
Whoever who said that to Jane, I'm sorry, but that is just not on. No, but people say the strangest things. I have friends who have twins, and one of my friends told me, "Oh, Cece, you have not heard it all till you've had twins." They get asked questions like, "Do you have a favorite?"
Oh, really?
So let me ask you guys this question.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's nuts. Let me ask you ladies this question. What is that about? What is it about parenting that makes society so, is it nervous, anxious, invested? I think this is such a triggering topic for everyone that everyone is just reacting to their own, again, Carolyne, you call them wounds. Everyone's reacting to their own wounds. You know what I mean? So I know, for example, the wounding of feeling abandoned, that's a deep one.
Yes.
And people really react to that when it comes to, being given advice on, I think when people react to how you're parenting, it's really them remembering the wound they have. And they project them onto you. Now, bear in mind, this seems to happen only to women. I don't think anyone's ever told our husbands or ex-husbands, should she be wearing that? Isn't it a bit too cold? People seem to take liberties with women, which is a whole other story. But ladies, what are your thoughts? Why are we so anxious, invested, and free with advice that we've not been asked for when it comes to how people parent. Jane, we'll start with you.
Sissy, haven't you heard that a child is brought up by a village, not a...
It's the village. I'm sorry.
It's a village.
It's
So this is a village
perspective.
This is a village
In
perspective.
all of us, it's instinctive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of times comes from our own fears.
Yeah.
Our own fears, and we project them onto other people.
Yeah.
Why doesn't your child have a sweater? It's almost 6 o'clock. Okay. I think the mother is aware it is 6 o'clock. The mother probably is aware. I remember one mother just looking at somebody and said, my child is on holiday. We live in a very cold country. So this is really not cold. They are okay.
Yeah.
And the lady
Like, why am I even answering to you, by the way?
Exactly. And then when the way we ask it is like, what sort of a mother are you? You know, you're feeling, you know, the kind of questions we ask.
It's the judgment.
Exactly.
The judgment that comes in. Oh, you know, when my child was young, this is what I did. Oh, you had success with that, but I may not have success in that.
Yeah.
You know, and really, actually, a lot of us give unsolicited advice. We open our mouths when we ought not to.
Mm-hmm.
Why is your child still breastfeeding at 1.5 years? Really, Sissy, what are you asking someone? This is their choice. I want to breastfeed my child until they are 3. Is that too old? Old for what? So really, it's a lot of our fears.
Yeah.
Where we felt we failed and we are wondering, why is this person being able to do this? And sometimes I actually have been in a forum where I've told ladies, it's so much easier just saying, I am finding this so refreshing that you're able to do this, and this, you have the knowledge for this, and this, I had no such knowledge. Or at that point, we didn't have this kind of things that are available to you now, you know, rather than now wanting to make the other person wrong. How their parenting is not the right way. And I think, and you know, and especially now when people are coming in, now we are parents now, we'll meet people who are coming into parenthood now. We have to be very conscious about how we say things about their children. And sometimes, honestly, let them be. If they're happy, they are hanging out well, they don't want to wear a sweater until 8 o'clock in the evening, who are you? Let them just be. And I feel there's a lot of as parents who have been there before the others. We know better, which is not necessarily true. We know better about our children, what we should and should not have done. And now we feel like we have a little more knowledge, but we have no knowledge.
Oh, Jane keeps coming in and out. Jane, we lose you sometimes. Hopefully she can come back. So Jane, if you can hear us, we seem to lose you sometimes. Hopefully she can come back. But I believe what Jane was saying is there's a lot of parents who have been parents for much longer feel they have more knowledge and they would have more experience. But again, it's just that.
But it's experience with their kids.
With their own children,
It doesn't count how much experience I have, but because I am living in a different timeline, my children are different experiences altogether. Like even if I have, for example, I have 3 children. I have parented the first one for more than 18 years. But I cannot say that experience qualifies me to parent my 3rd child the same way. I don't have experience with my 3rd child.
That's right. And that's the other thing, Caroline. Kids are each so different. Because it's a different human
every child is a different child.
Every child is a different child. Now, I want to just talk about, welcome back, Jane.
I fell off.
That's okay. That's okay, Jane. I'd love us to shift the conversation now to losing a parent. And again, you know, sometimes the words fail us. I actually don't think lose is the appropriate word, but that's a conversation for another day. When my dad passed away, and I know, Jane, your mom has passed away as well.
Both.
It was, yes, both your parents. It was such a profound experience. It was such a profound experience. And I remember being in the hospital. My dad was close to passing, and there was nothing left to say. And again, my coaches and teachers had helped me during this time. There was nothing left to say. And I just said to Dad, thank you. There's nothing left to say. Just thank you. And my dad said something to me I'll never forget. I wasn't a mom at that time. And my dad said, it's been a privilege. And first of all, number one, I'm so thankful that my dad left me with that gift, because, he could have said, well, you were difficult. But no, he said it's been a privilege. And now that I'm a parent, on the up days, on the down days, the easy times, the difficult times, I'm just like, holy smokes, he was right. This thing is a privilege. Jane, I know you had quite an experience, when your mom passed. Was it as profound for you?
Yes. First, my dad passed on. Those like 5 years apart. When my dad passed on, yes, this thing actually happens. Huh? I mean, that's where I went. And I felt like there was something else I needed to have done. I didn't feel like I had closed the chapter with him. I felt like there was unfinished business. I felt like, oh my God, this is it. I mean, during the funeral, I was in a daze. I was like, this is it. I mean, we've buried him and that's it. And now we go back home and, he died on a Monday. By Friday, we had buried him. It was so quick, Sissy. It was just, it left me completely, I felt like something had been snatched away from me before I was ready to let it go.
Yeah.
My dad was a sudden death. My mom went through illness. Yeah. And I remember, having a coaching session, Sissy, if you remember, with Carolyne.
Yeah. And yes, I remember.
And her asking us, she asked me, what lessons am I learning through my mom's illness? Yeah. And it was, so what? Yeah. Was there supposed to be a lesson? And really Carolyne, that session really, really helped. Yeah. Now, when my dad passed away, I still had my mom. So I still felt I was covered. When my mom passed away, I felt like I had now been exposed. Who do I have left? Who do I turn to? Wow. It was really, for me, I had a lot of questions. Though the only difference here is I felt I went through the journey with my mom, that I wasn't left with unfinished business. I felt we said what there was to say, but then I still felt stripped. And there were even now, there are days I wake up and I say, wow, it would be nice to have one more moment with her. Yeah. But I knew it's yes. And now I have accepted the transition, and I know that it wasn't me. It wasn't my call to make.
Of course not.
It was never my call to make. She finished her journey on earth. But I feel better that I that session, Carolyne, really helped. And I was able to, sit with her and just have those difficult conversations that, again, I didn't want even my own siblings to hear about. I wasn't telling her, I'm ready to let you go. No, I was just saying, just having those conversations where you feel you're tying up everything in the event this doesn't continue.
Yeah.
So that's so important. It's so important, because one of the things I say to people who might, your parents might be, older and unwell, you want to get complete. You want to get complete. It was what it was. You were parented how you were parented, and it helps to get complete with your parents. Yes. And here's the thing: you don't have to wait for a death to happen to get complete with parents. Like, if you're a 25-year-old listening to this and you have a dad or a mom who's 50, take them out for dinner, take them out for lunch, and just talk. That piece is it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. You don't want people to be passing away when you're still, I have 1,000 questions, I'm still angry, I'm still this, I'm still that.
And Sissy, it's nice to give them the flowers now.
Yeah.
where they can physically receive them
Yes, 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 yes.
Exactly.
and appreciate them, not on their
Yes.
grave.
No, not in long funeral speeches. Not in
No,
long
this
funeral
is the
speeches.
time.
This is the
Let them
time.
let them receive the flowers. And if you have anything that you've held back, this is the time to just say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think this relationship is very foundational.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the foundation of all the other relationships because this is where you learn who to be and how to be. And so it's really
Yourself.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you step into this relationship with awareness, you are able to also see where you've been coming from with everyone else, with your own
Yes.
children, with your intimate relationship, with your
Yes.
workmates.
Yes.
Because this is where you developed your identity, like your
Absolutely.
psychological self was
Yes.
formed by this dynamic.
Mm.
So I also think I haven't lost a parent myself, but I feel because I've coached a lot of people just before they lost their parents. And some surprisingly, I somehow know, even with Jane, I knew she was wrapping it up
Yeah.
because
Yes.
of how the conversation
How the
went.
conversation
Even,
was
you know,
going.
yes,
Yeah.
there are other clients who've come to me and we've had the session, and I knew after the session, I knew the parent is going to leave. What I've noticed is we don't necessarily mourn and grieve the person we have lost. Most of the time, we are grieving what they meant to
Yes.
us because a lot of people do not have that level of aware. They still are idealizing their parent. They still are not seeing them as a human being.
Yeah.
But this human beings stand for something. And when they go,
Yeah.
if they stand for unresolved something or they stand for, you know, whatever it is that this person means to them, that's what they have lost. And that's why some people never recover
Yes.
because you have always thought that this is the person that will give you approval. You've always looked for this approval to be yourself,
Yes.
to
Yes.
be authentic.
Yeah.
Then the person dies and they never gave you that. Then it's
Wow.
like your last chance is gone.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, it's like they die with it, the approval, and you're like you're something in your psyche says I'll never get it.
Yeah.
And some people totally change after the death of a parent because they feel like they'll never get the approval. So let me just live with that wound. So it's a really deep thing that we could go into for ages.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a question we can consider later on. Yeah. Sissy, I'd like to share a couple of lessons I have learned as a parent. Is that okay? Is this the time?
Yeah, let me just ask one more question and then we will get to that.
Yes.
You know, sometimes so don't lose your train of thought, Jane. You know, there are times as coaches, and I know the two of you believe this as well. I actually do too. This idea of you choose your parents. That is a belief that a lot of people in the world have. Some don't, some do, depending on your faith, your philosophies. And a lot of people kind of shake their heads and go, wait, what? What on earth does that mean?
Yeah.
And for me, and again, listeners, take what you will, discard what you will. I struggled with that in the beginning, during the blame phase that we all go through. I struggled with that in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I remember, again, I was in my 30s probably, and early 30s, mid 30s, and it dawned on me, oh my gosh, yes, I can see why some faiths believe that you choose your parents, because there are certain qualities I got from my mom that I love about myself, and they have really helped me navigate this world. So my mom, for example, is very adventurous, very creative. My mom was running her own side hustles long before running your side hustle became a thing. She was always open. She was always learning. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized not all moms are like that.
Yeah.
I learned that from my mom. And I remember I was in Mount Kenya, staring at the mountain as we do, Jane.
Yes.
And it just dawned on me. I was like, oh my God. It's probably one of the reasons I chose this woman to be my mom, Now, my father was a reader, a philosopher. He's a professor at university. And again, I love that about myself. But such a huge part of who I am today that I really appreciate, I got from them. And so it started to make sense to me why I would choose those parents. And I'm sure I don't have the full picture, but let me share something else with you. I'm quite unusual, quite quirky, and I know the two of you see that. You're quite quirky and unusual as well. But it's my quirkiness and unusual thinking that helps my clients, especially women. There are certain things I say to clients that I didn't learn when I was getting my coaching accreditation. I learned them from my mom. Like this of give yourself permission, do what you want. Stop suppressing your desires and then being angry with your spouse when your spouse doesn't suppress his desires, things like, I really like how men, for example, men give themselves permission. It's I'm going to the Middle East to watch the Grand Prix, and it's not I'm so tired, I need a break. It's just me and the boys are going because it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
A lot of women
they're not asking
struggle.
for permission.
They're not asking for permission. And now I had
they
a mom
already
who was
gave
like
it to
that.
themselves.
Yeah. I had a mom who was like that. And so I'm a very unusual African woman in the sense that I give myself permission. And so a lot of the things I do, a lot of women used to find really weird. They're like, wait, Sisi, you've taken yourself to the Masai Mara. Where's your husband? And I'm like, the husband is at home. He's awesome. He didn't want to come. I've gone. And now people send me text messages. They're like, Sisi, I thought you should know. I've taken myself to Mombasa by myself. What a good idea. I didn't learn that in coaching school. I learned that from my mom. Yeah. And so there's a direct link between how I help clients and the mother I chose.
Yes.
Do you get that, ladies? Like,
oh yes.
Yeah.
So
it's connected to Papa.
What are your thoughts on that, Carolyne? This idea, which may be true, it may not be. Take what you want, keep what you want. This idea that we choose our parents. What are your thoughts, Carolyne?
Yeah, I first of all, I believe in that. And I think it's highly connected to purpose, the conversation we previously had.
Yes.
Because for a soul to incarnate in this world, in this dimension, it has a purpose, purpose of, what it's coming to express, what it's coming to experience. And so just like a play or a drama, the context must be set up to ensure that this soul gets the experience and the expression that it's coming here for.
Yeah.
And the first setup is the family that it's getting into. Yeah. So depending on what you're here for, the expression you're here to give and the experience you're here to get, then the setup starts with, who are these two people that are going to come together? And what is the context of their coming together? Because that is really critical, because the moment that you're coming here, the moment that you're being conceived is very important.
Yeah.
Because that is the whole setup. Are these two people together? Are these people falling apart soon after?
Yeah.
Are these people ready? Are these people expecting you? Are these people wanting you?
Yeah.
It's the whole context that now brings your whole purpose into play.
Yeah.
So I highly believe that we choose our parents.
Yeah.
And we choose them because of who they are and what they have, and also most importantly, where they are at.
Where they're at.
In their own life's journey. Because I remember as a parent, because guys, remember, parenting is not just parenting because you have a kid and they're growing up well. Parenting is also about the kids that you didn't have. So I got a miscarriage and I'm still a parent to that child who I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I have a strong belief that this child came back to me as my daughter, because I was so clear in my mind. I knew I was going to get a daughter a year before I conceived her.
Yeah.
And then I did. And then I remember I lost that pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting, I was in a meeting at the Serena, and I remember sitting in that toilet, bleeding out profusely. And I just, beyond the pain, because I had a lot of pain,
Yeah.
something in my mind just knew that it was not the right moment. It's like you're jumping in a river and you realize you jumped at the wrong place, and then you get out and you're going to go and try and jump again.
Yeah.
And I felt that I knew that she would come back when I'm ready. And she did.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
she did. And
Yes.
I kept telling
Yes.
my ex-husband,
Yeah.
it's a girl. And we kept doing the scans and it wouldn't show the gender, it wouldn't show. And then when she was born, it was like, and my ex-husband was like, how are you so sure it was a girl?
Yeah.
I knew it. So guys, it's really, for me, it's been proven. It's not even a belief
Yes.
anymore. It's a
Yes.
knowing. I know.
Yes.
We choose our parents, we choose our circumstances, we choose everything from a soul perspective.
From a soul perspective. And you know,
Yeah.
you've raised a really important subtopic, which is miscarriage, which is actually more common than people would like to admit. I had a miscarriage as well before we had our daughter, who's 5 now. I had a miscarriage as well. And if I just link it back to the previous episode on purpose, if you look at it from the surface, a miscarriage is just a miscarriage. You had a kid, you lost the kid, and that's sad and terrible, and we move on, da 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 da. But let me tell you something. That lost child served its purpose. Because like I said in the previous episode, that miscarriage is what helped me come back to my feminine. And it was after that miscarriage that I actually started running workshops just for women, the Return to the Feminine workshops. And so from the perspective of purpose, that unborn baby, that soul has served its purpose. And that's really profound. A lot of, again, this is why we said your purpose is not your job, your purpose is not how useful you are. Different people come through for different reasons. Some come through for a few months, some come through for a few years, some come through for 100 years, whatever the case. That nothing is a waste. Nothing is a waste in this life. No moment, no conversation, no experience. Nothing is a waste.
Yeah.
What about you, Jay? And let me just add this as well. I read a parenting book. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the name now. Is it spiritual birthing or something like that? And the authors said, chapter 1, page 1, the authors said, birthing a child isn't the only way to become a parent. You can adopt the child that was meant for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to get pregnant and give birth to the soul that is your child. And I've spoken to people who've adopted, and let me tell you guys something that's so crazy. The adopted child starts looking like the parents.
Oh, yes.
Talk to people who've adopted. Yes. Talk to people who've adopted. Their stories are profound. Yes. I know somebody who has one child by natural birth, one child by adoption, and everybody who doesn't know the background just thinks, oh yeah, those are sisters. They even look alike. And she told me she just laughs in her head and she's like, wow, what a trip. Yeah. But here's the other thing. Your child might also come to you through the guise of niece, nephew, your friend's child. I know people who feel such a strong bond to their friends' children. I mean, it's so profound. Jane, what are your thoughts around we choose our parents? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Oh, I agree completely. And the first time I was told that, I fought with my coach. What do you mean I chose my parents? How did I choose them? I wasn't even there. I went all through all that. But yes, now I believe from a soul level. And then when I got to agree, then the question I asked myself is, really, I chose this? Yeah. This is what I wanted to come.
These ones?
This one? And again, it was humbling.
Look at my choices.
Look at my choices, yeah. And it was humbling to come to the realization of really the lessons they were bringing to me. Like you said, Sissy, some of the coaching we're doing today, it's not what we learned in the coaching sessions. It's really what we experienced even as children growing up, and the lessons that our parents were presenting to us.
Yeah.
They are being there, they're not being there. You're able, today, most of the people who come through to me, we connect at a level where when they're saying something, I feel it because of what I went through, because of the parents that brought me up. So it becomes so important at that point. I tell you, it was a struggle. Telling me I chose, how did I choose? I was never here to choose. And then when I agreed, then, okay, I chose, then what is this that I chose?
Yeah.
So I believe we did.
Yeah.
And like we said last week, it's life, our purpose is to experience life and experience it fully. I can say they are here without fear of contradiction. My parents helped me go through that.
Yeah.
Because there were lessons I needed. My mom really tested my patience. She said she would do some things, or she would say some things to me. But today, I really see how that helps me in my coaching.
Yes, absolutely.
It really, really helps. So really, much as I doubted my choice and how I chose them, now I see completely why they needed to be in my life.
Yeah,
and
grateful for the choice. You're
just grateful for the choice.
Yeah, these are awesome.
And grateful. Awesome. And really, truly an honor that they too agreed to parent me, because much as I chose them, they also agreed to parent me.
Yeah.
And dish out those lessons. Dish out those
lessons.
Yes.
There's a pattern, a very interesting pattern I've noticed. A lot of my male clients who are just out of this world, radical thinkers, super creative, they tend to be founders. They have dads who left.
Yes.
So again, there's that connection of, okay, I'm young, my dad has bounced, I need to grow up fast, I need to think really creatively, and poof, you at the age of 35, 40, you become this
supposed to grow up very
remarkable, one-of-a-kind founder. And that may not have happened if you had the cushioning of a cozy home with both mom and dad. Now, of course, that's not to say that founders only come from single-parent families. That's not true. No. That's just not true. But it's very interesting. But I did notice that pattern. And I was like, wow, man, there's this organizing principle that is happening in life. It's
the intelligence out there.
Yeah, it's so.
It doesn't go wrong.
It's giving you exactly what you need to be who you need to be for this experience that you came from.
Yeah.
So it's like you might not know what you need. It's like the way you don't know about tomorrow and the month after. So you might not know what you need. So you get what you need today. It might come in the form of a lottery win or an accident. You never know.
You never know.
And that's why you're told to actually believe everything is working for your good, because you don't know.
Exactly. Yes. Later, and this is why, to all our listeners, when coaches say, it's happening for your good and just be in the experience, it's not hippy-dippy talk. It's coming from a place of, my friend, it may not make sense now, but if you just stick with it, this thing is going to make sense tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, etc., etc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I tell my
Let's go to the question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I tell my clients that how you know that it's meant to happen, it's that it's happening.
It's happening.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be.
And it's happening in the way it's happening, not in
meant to happen.
It's happening in the way it's happening.
Yes.
Let's go now, Jane, to what you wanted to share. What have been some of the lessons?
Some of the lessons. as I thought through when we were coming to this session, I know we don't prepare, we don't come out like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We just have conversations. But something stood out for me. And I said, some of the lessons that I have learned about parenting came in way of questions. One of them was, what's more important in your parenting? Is it what you leave in your child, or is it what you leave for your child? And that really hit me hard. Is it what you leave in your child? Is it what you leave for your child?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as saying, am I creating a future for my child, or am I creating my child for the future? So really, as we are going through this parenting journey, it's so important to ask yourself such questions. What is more important for you as a parent? Is it what you leave in your child, or what you leave for them?
Mm-hmm.
And really, one of the things that I have seen for me in my children, now that they're adults, what I was able to impart in them is really what is calling the day-to-day. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what you leave for them, no. But it's so important that we actually take time. That is almost like conscious parenting. What am I leaving in my child?
Yeah.
The second thing for me that came through for me, and this you mentioned, you alluded to it earlier, Sissy, does your child belong to you or come through you?
Yeah.
I fought with that question many times. What do you mean? This is my child. I've been like Dr. Huxtable. I brought this child into this world. Yeah.
The child isn't mine.
Exactly. What do you mean? They bear my name. In the birth certificate, my name is there. What do you mean? But it was a question that I fought with.
Yeah.
But when I came to the realization, the child comes through me.
Yeah.
Does not belong to me. And I'm just a custodian.
Yeah.
And therefore, when I'm not gripping hard anymore, because this child also they have a mind of their own, and it's at a very early age. What we're calling terrible too is when they're discovering that, I have a mind of my own. I don't feel like this, I feel like this. And you're thinking, that's being terrible, no?
Yeah.
That's just letting you know. Now, they have a choice now.
Children are born. If anybody out there who is not a parent, I would like to inform you right now. You heard it here first.
Yes.
Children are born with their personalities.
Oh, yes.
It shows up from the jump. That's another thing people don't talk about.
Yeah.
It shows up from the jump.
Yes.
Yes.
The third one for me, Sissy, this one was, what we say, things chopper you. Yeah. This one choppered me a lot and still does. Are you raising the child in front of you, or are you raising the child within you?
Ooh,
are you raising?
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
When I say, are you raising the child? Because many times we think we are raising the child we birthed. We're actually raising ourselves.
Yes.
There's still that child in us who still requires raising. There's still that child who requires parenting.
Yeah. How do we parent ourselves?
How do we parent ourselves? And many times, most of the things we are actually projecting on our children is just how we feel there's something missing in our own parenting, how we were parented.
Yeah.
And that really got me, actually. So sometimes when I'm asking questions or I'm sitting with my children, I'll even ask myself, okay, was that meant for me or for them? Really? Let's just be real. This one was meant for me. This one was mine. So those three questions I just want to leave it at that, because I believe you also have some lessons you've learned. But those three questions, they come in question form, have really gotten me to think, wow, just being conscious about your parenting, you know. So let me leave it at that, and thanks for the opportunity.
No, I love that, because while at this, that alludes back to what you had said earlier, Jane, because our kids are our teachers. And if that's something you fight with, you're going to have a pretty tough experience being a parent. We learn a lot from our kids. So for example, for a lot of people, having a child reminds them of their childlike nature. And having a kid just helps them become playful again, and just messing around with the kid and all that sort of stuff. Our kids are our teachers. So again, so profound. Carolyne, what about you? What are some of the lessons you've learned? And we're still learning. We are still learning.
Yeah. Wow, we're still learning. And you see, what what I realize is that, first of all, my parenting is really, really integrated with my own life and how my life is going.
Yeah.
So it's like the different seasons of my life have somehow influenced how I have parented my children. So it's like at the very beginning, when I first got pregnant, I was a teenager. Let me say that, because I was 19 going to 20.
Yeah.
I parented differently because of the circumstances around that.
Yeah.
When I got married, I was, parenting differently. When we got separated, I'm parenting differently. So
Yeah.
I've learned that the seasons of my life influence how I parent.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a fact.
Yeah.
And I need to be cognizant of that. So when I'm sick, there's a way I parent, because
Yeah.
I'm not available to a certain extent to the child,
Yeah.
psychologically, emotionally, physically, maybe even financially. So it depends on, so my life is really connected to how. And so when I'm cognizant of that, I'm able to even rope them in and bring them into the experience and to
Yes.
allow them to also process it also, so
Yeah.
that they can also know that mom is also going through her own things,
Yes.
and this
Mom
is
has a life.
influencing how she shows
Yeah.
up for us. The second thing is I have learned is that, coming from that perspective of I don't know, it's,
Yes.
under actually just internalizing that I don't know brought me to the question of, then what do I know? What can I know? you
Yes.
know and I realized the only thing I can know is for myself. I can never know for anyone apart from my children. No, even my children,
Yeah, you
I can
don't.
never know for anybody on this planet. I can only know for myself. And so I've realized that the best way to show up as a parent is to show up the best way for myself. So
Yeah.
I need to step
Yeah.
into
That's
what I
true.
know for myself and be in my truth,
Yeah.
because that's what will make me be the best as a
Yeah.
parent. And
Yeah.
sometimes it comes up crazy. And I have learned not to judge myself, because, again, you don't know the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Maybe for their purpose, they needed me to be angry that day that I needed to be angry and beat them up.
Yeah.
So I'm not judging myself.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, even just
Absolutely.
forgiving yourself for what you think is wrong,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and remember that there's a bigger picture unfolding.
Yeah.
Mm.
There is.
And so allowing yourself to be in your truth first and foremost, because again, sometimes we think that there's a best way you can show up outside of yourself. You
Yeah.
can't until you have shown up for yourself first.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's
And
an
then,
act. You have an act.
exactly,
Yeah. Like trying to be the perfect parent. It's an act. Just
exactly, it's an act.
hard
And
to.
then I've also learned that the last lesson that I'll share, I've learned many, but the last lesson that I'll share for this conversation is, we think, when we are thinking that we are being judged for how we are living our lives, we never think that we are being judged by our children, but we do subconsciously. We are afraid of our children judging us for how we
Absolutely.
live our life,
Absolutely.
because there is a way that we want to be seen by them subconsciously.
Yep.
And so for me, it has been to release that. It will happen. They
Yeah.
will judge me because they are idealizing me. And that's a normal
Yes.
subconscious thing for them to
Yes.
survive. So they need
Yeah.
to survive. They need to feel safe. But then I have also allowed myself to help them access parts of my life that I know will not destabilize them. So it's not that I'm hiding from them. I'm just cognizant of the fact that if they know this about me, they'll start feeling unsafe. But
Mhm.
then when they get to a certain age, they can access that aspect of me.
Yes, and I really like
Important.
how you phrased it, Caroline. I really like how you phrased it because that's a very mindful thing to do.
Mm.
Yeah.
I know people who had a parent that fell apart and
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
they had to parent their parent. So you're
Mm.
19, your mom is whatever, 40, 45, whatever, and mom falls apart for whatever reason. And it was them that had to now start parenting the mom. And that's a whole other kettle of fish when you become
Yeah.
the parent to your parent.
Mm.
And it's
Mm.
not a judgment. Again, they're being done. There's a reason that is
Yeah,
happening.
obviously.
Um, but it's not easy. It's not easy. Um, wow, so many lessons, so many lessons. Let me think. What are some of the lessons I've learned? I think, and you know, I out of all of us, I have the youngest daughter, 5. Although Caroline, I know you also have is it 5 or 6 year old? Um,
She's 5. She just turned
5 as
5.
well, right?
Yeah.
Early in the journey. For me, one of the biggest lessons has been I'm not the only teacher my daughter will have. There's her
Oh
dad, of course.
yeah.
Her dad will be a teacher. Um, in my life, my parents have been my teachers, but I've had so many teachers, willingly and
Mm.
unwillingly, you know. So letting go of that I'm not the only teacher my daughter will have. I'm not the only teacher she should have. There's so many people who are going to influence her life in profound ways. And the other
Mm.
lesson is around attachment, because there was a phase I went through where I was quite protective of my daughter and trying to really manage her experience of other people. And so it's been a process of just letting go, letting go, letting go. She will go through what she goes through. There's also that ever present underlying fear that parents have, you know, oh my God, I want my kid to be safe. I don't want my kid to be hurt. And I realized my fear had become unhealthy. And it morphs into control. If you're not careful, it can morph into control. So I've stopped myself and I'm just like, Cece, Ojany is having her own experience. Ojany is having her own experience.
And you're not the one to manage it.
I'm not the one to manage. I can only influence. Now, ladies, let's just spend 2 more minutes. I know we've gone over time, but it's such a complex issue. Well, it's not an issue, it's just a discussion. There are people who are trying really, really hard to have children, and for whatever reason, it's not working. There's a friend of mine back in Australia who, at one point, she was the therapist in an IVF clinic, because you know people who go through that process sometimes need therapy, especially if it doesn't work. And she said to me, there are people who've been here for as long as 10 years, and it's just not happening. And part of her job includes saying things like, if this doesn't happen, what else can your life be about? And that's very triggering. That's very, very triggering. She doesn't say things like, listen, maybe you're just not meant to be parents. No, that's not how to say it. But it's just that question of what else can your life be about? Because again, this is something that triggers a lot of people because the world has told you, but you need to have kids. Come on, you're an adult. You need to have kids.
You are not complete.
You are not complete. And I'm not sure I subscribe to that. It's such a touchy topic, but I'm curious, Jane, what are your thoughts on that? For all the people out there who are trying to have a kid and for whatever reason it's just not working, can we leave them with any words of wisdom or a different way of looking at it? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jane?
So one of the things, especially if this has been your desire and you have, you're pursuing many avenues.
Yeah.
First is okay, if you're pursuing one avenue, there's also other avenues you can pursue in ways of becoming a parent.
Yeah.
Now, if you've explored every one of those avenues that you wish to take on, and it's still not working. I think one of the things to come to terms with is perhaps your parenting, that we're told all the children we have, and I think, Sissy, you're the first one to have told me that my children may not all come through me. Am I willing to see it that way? Am I willing to even just, I know a friend of mine who said, I've tried and it's not working. And I've decided my sister's children, I'm going to love on them. Maybe those are the children that were meant to come, to me through my sister. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is not to allow yourself to see yourself as a lesser person because you haven't brought forth a child into this world. We may not birth all our children, but there are enough children to spread love to. There are enough children to extend ourselves to.
Yeah.
You're not less of a person that you haven't had a child.
Yeah.
And sometimes what we do is we put so much pressure on ourselves. So even that which was meant, perhaps that was coming your way, might delay because of all the anxiety that you have.
Yeah.
And then some people become bitter to a point where they don't want to talk to friends who have children. And again, that's when I say it's important that when you're also with your friends and that becomes a touchy subject for you, I'm not telling you, you're not going to tell your friends, never ever mention about your children, but also be sensitive around her. It's also nice for her to voice her thoughts about, because sometimes when we're mothers, we're sitting together, we can ramble on about our children.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are people there who are also struggling having children and we may not be cognizant of how they're feeling. Just sometimes to voice such thoughts, but more importantly, it's just the realization. Sometimes we don't know, like we said, we don't know how life is going to show up.
Yeah.
There are women who have waited until 50. I know a lady who gave birth at 50.
So do I. I know. Yeah. Yeah.
She had 4 children. 4. She had just adopted one.
Yeah.
And then 4 came through. And she was like, what?
Funny how that happens. It's actually quite common for people to adopt and then suddenly be able to birth a child. It's quite interesting.
Birth a child, yes. And I think there's something that opens up in you. There's a space that opens up in you that now, that attracts that. I don't know what it is, but there's something that happens there. It's just a reminder. There's nothing wrong with you not having a child. Because I think you see, the way, I don't know about you, perhaps you were raised a bit differently. For us, the pattern was exactly the same, go to school, finish, then get married, have children, that was the pattern. But now it's simply a bit different. Some of people are having children even before they get into marriage. Others are getting into marriage and choosing not to have children. Others are getting into marriage and not actually having children just because they're not able to. We don't know what this life will present. How can we be at peace with what is?
Yeah.
How can we be at peace with what is?
Yeah. Your life is whole. You are whole. Yes. Your life is whole. For me, it's the desire for children for me is it's a deeper desire to love and to connect. And there are so many ways on this planet to love and to connect. I have a former client, for example, who she loves going to children's homes because a lot of the kids in those homes, abandoned for whatever reason, they need physical touch, they need hugs, they need smiles, they need and that is a profound thing to do. To love and show care and kindness even to a child that is not yours. But there's so many ways to love and to connect. I know couples who don't want to have kids, and they remain forever young. It's quite cool, because kids can age you. That's the other thing. Children can age you.
Yes, and they affect your body positive.
They affect everything. So there are so many ways to love and to connect. And if I just link this back to purpose, again, we cannot say that the purpose in life is to have kids. That's just doesn't make sense on any level, Carolyne, what are your thoughts? And then we'll wrap up. What are your thoughts around this?
I think, first of all, the most underlying thing that most of us believe, even without knowing, is that it's obvious that when you want a kid, you'll get a kid. This is not like a handbag. You walk into a shop and just go get because you want it.
Yeah.
There are so many factors at play. And just because most people who want kids get kids doesn't mean that it's easy. Doesn't mean that it's obvious. It's a given. It's not.
It's not.
So let's just first clear that up and say that there are so many factors at play. There are so many forces, because even the souls that come into through us have to make that decision. So it's not just you.
Not just you.
know,
Yeah.
it's not just you. So it's even biologically, there's so many things that may delay or stop the process that are beyond your control.
Yeah.
So how then do you take on that and make it your fault, or make it something to make you feel like you're less than?
Yeah.
So having that in mind can make you go through the process easily, so that you're not comparing yourself with others, because that's one of the things that makes people in that situation feel so bad, because you're comparing yourself with others and you're feeling like you're less than.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at the energetics of it, sometimes it's the energetics of it. Remember, your body is a physical manifestation of your subconscious mind.
Yep.
So, and if you're talking about karma and you're talking about all these things that we talk about that, okay, some people don't believe in, but then there's a whole story before the story of you.
Yeah.
And you don't know what that entails. So you don't know which aspects of your subconscious mind are resisting parenting.
Yeah.
And they are showing up as your body refusing to conceive, or your sperm count being down, or whatever it is. There's so many dynamics.
Yeah.
So the best thing to go through this is, first of all, to be internalize that you're whole and complete, whether you have kids or not. Kids don't define you. Kids are just, and you're just a portal for a soul to come in through this world.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you less than or more than even. So allow yourself to accept that reality, and then you can accept whatever comes to you. Whether you get a kid or not, you can be happy. If you don't get a kid through conception and you still want a child, you can find a child to love and parent, and that won't be a big deal for you.
Yeah.
So just allow life to unfold the way it's unfolding, and just allow yourself to be whole and complete just the way you are.
Just the way you are. Let me wrap up by saying, just following on from what you're saying, Caroline, if we go back to the romanticizing and the fantasy that has been created around parenting, you can have this desperation to be a parent and it's not working and da-da-da-da-da-da. But there are people out there who have been disappointed in their experience of being a parent, kids who let you down, kids who are really still struggling. And, the parenting journey is not easy. And it's so important to be able to hold those two thoughts at the same time. Yes, it's a blessing, but some parents are really struggling for various reasons. So they also get triggered when we're all lovey-dovey and happy on Mother's Day and Father's Day and all the rest of it. Yes, it's a blessing, but it can also be quite tough. It just is what it is. Oh my gosh, ladies. We've gone out of time and there's still more to discuss, but let us wrap up here.
Let's take this on offline.
This is an endless topic. Jane, how can people who want to be coached by you reach you?
Sissy, very simple. They can send me an email, jkatuga@gmail.com. Let me say that again, jkatuga ojany@gmail.com, or you can reach me on 0722-528-762.
Awesome. What about you, Carolyne?
I can be reached on social media. On Facebook, I'm Carolyne Gaithuma. On Instagram, at cgaithuma. And my number is 0721 385870. 0721 385870.
Thank you so much. I'm Cece Ojany-Bekhor. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just look for Cece, CECE-OJANY. You can also find me at Coach Cece Ojany on Instagram, on Facebook, and yes, of course, on the podcast, which is available wherever podcasts are available. Ladies, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful conversation. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank
Bye
you
to all our listeners. Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Bye.